Oh my gosh, guys, welcome back. Episode 28 of the Light Warriors Unleashed podcast. And I have a beautiful, beautiful spirit to share with you today. Berenice Tan. She's from Australia. You can hear it in her voice and her accent and how she shows up. But what a beautiful conversation that we had today. And not even just beautiful in the way that she shows up in her mannerisms, how she serves in the field of her energy, but also in the way of the beauty that we connected on. Like, I swear, like offline, I called her my spirit animal, because I'm like, the process of what she went through in life and the dynamics of certain stuff in her field, I went through as well in different ways. And I watched this conversation go down in this beautiful tapestry of conversation, the laughing and the movement together that we created in this discussion and through Ber's story is going to light your soul on fire. So for this one, if you have a chance to sit back and relax and take it in, I would highly suggest putting on earphones, putting your feet up and relaxing. If you're working and you're listening to this or you're on the move, cool too. But this vibration that she brings into the collective with this conversation we were having today is so beautiful. And we're laughing, we're riffing, we had no mechanism played out other than I was going to talk about breath work. And it's so funny because we got to like near the end of the podcast and we finally start talking about breath work, like actually what breath work is. And we talk about how to quantum change with it. We talk about her healing journey and how she got into this space. We talk about the feminine leadership moving through the collective, the divine masculine and feminine energy, sacred union. Like, we lean into so many different dynamics here. And she is a beautiful, beautiful soul. She's got so many certifications behind her. You'll hear the story in the podcast about how she literally flew to America to like all these different schools for meditation to learn about meditation, to be able to grab what she desired to lead with in her purpose in the world. And this amazing journey she's on. You know, she's got Reiki, she's a sound healer, you know, NLP and all the dynamics of that. But wow, just what a beautiful being doing beautiful work in the world. And I am so grateful today to step in to share her with you in all of this perspective. And welcome to the podcast, guys, Ber. Oh my gosh, guys, I'm so excited to lean into this today with Ber. Okay. We just went over right before we hit record about how to pronounce her name, because you would think it was like Bernice or Bear, but it's not. It's Ber. Correct? Ber?
Correct. It's like Ber. It's cold in here. That's
I know.
how
I
I
was like,
tell people to remember.
I love. Wouldn't you love to have that? It's like your name, and be like, just remember this, Ber. It's cold in here. Like, that's from like that movie with those cheerleaders. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, bring it on.
Yes, bring it on. Absolutely. And that's pretty much what she said to me before like we hit record. She's like, bring it on, baby. I'm all in. And I'm like, yes, let's go. Okay. So we obviously got the intro out of the way, but beautiful light, beautiful soul leading in a pathway on the earth, and breathwork facilitator, doing all the cool stuff. But you didn't always have these tools in your field. So I'd love to just hear about like, how did you come across this story? Because I think there's a lot of potency in this for people, and I cannot wait to hear it. Go for it. Take it away.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I love your energy.
Oh,
And what I'm going to do, because my story is quite long, and there's so many different rabbit holes we could go down, is I'll tell you it. And then if there's anything that stands out and you want to dive into, just either stop me or speak into it at the end and ask more about that.
cool.
Yeah.
I'm totally excited for this. I'm so in. I'll keep my like fingers when I try to like when someone's talking and I have like a question or a pulse point, I put up a finger. So I'll just put up a finger and be like, there was 3 things I wanted to ask. Let's hope I remember. We'll just see how this all plays out.
That is so cool. We do something like that in breathwork, actually. If something comes to us, you tether it, but you don't want to leave the meditation, then you tether it to your finger, wrap it around, and then that memory becomes an anchor point that you can speak into after you finish the breathwork or meditation. And you can do that with as many fingers as you want. Anyway, okay, my story.
Funny how like I don't even have that awareness, but it's something that I do. Like, you know, it's just like it's so fun how things start to play out. I love how this all works in flow. So yeah, go ahead, wherever you want to lead us to. Start in the middle, at the beginning, at the end, wherever you want to go. I can't wait for this. So excited.
You know, I might start actually with a post that I wrote a couple of days ago, and it was speaking into the sexual abuse that I'd had as a little girl. And I recently wrote it, and I've spoken into that abuse quite a bit, but it was totally different this time. because in it I spoke about, I said, yesterday I saw an alternate world. And in this alternate world, after the abuse happened, I didn't seal my lips and shut my heart. Instead, I told someone. And
yeah,
where my story would begin, I would say, is with that.
yeah.
A lot of people think because I'm in breathwork and meditation that I was immediately, you know, this spiritual person who was really connected, who loved talking to plants. And I'm like, oh wow, that's just so off. Like, that could not be further from the truth.
It's so fun,
I
like that spiritual pathway, right, that we go on. And most people think, well, you must have been awakened for all this time. I'm like, yeah. And then I shut it off, and then I didn't listen. And then I went down my own space. So I so feel that. I so
yeah,
feel that.
yeah. And so for me, it was when that happened, when I was about between 8 and 10, I didn't know what to do with it. Like, I knew, and I was pretty like academic. Like, I was like one of those like what is it, Asian nerds.
Yeah.
So I was very smart.
I could feel that
And
from you. I feel like there's very smart energy too. So like very the logical side. Yeah, own it, girl.
yeah, right, like very much in my head. And I knew that something was wrong with what had happened to me. Like, it was very obvious. And I always thought to myself intellectually, I was like, you're gonna have to deal, like, even as a like little girl, between like all through primary school and then all up to high school as well, I was thinking to myself, you're gonna have to deal with this someday. But I didn't know how.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was probably in my early 20s, and I'd moved through social anxiety, eating disorders. I had this thing where it was so draining to be around people, but you would never have guessed it. Like, on the outside, I was like this beautiful, like chirpy, bubbly, happy, always smiling person. I think I did that because I really thought, you know, based on what had happened to me, I'm like, no one can tell and nobody knows because I've not told anyone. And so there must be so many people who've experienced this. And so I have to be nice to everybody because you never know what they're going through. And so in my head, I thought, oh, if anyone is going through this, well, you just can't know. And so I put all this pressure on myself, became a huge perfectionist, and then could not stop overthinking everything. It's like, oh my God, that person's eyebrow shifted. What does that mean? How can I support them through this? You know, and yeah, again, it wasn't until my early 20s that I had this like feeling drop in when I was walking across a road, and I didn't check for traffic. And I remember, without looking up, thinking to myself, oh, I didn't check for traffic. And I felt this like wave of like relief, like relief, right? And it was like, well, maybe a car will hit you, and then all of this will be over.
Interesting, right? Yeah.
And when I had that thought, I was like, all right, you're gonna do something.
Yeah, seriously.
You've been saying since you were 8 years old you're gonna do something. Now it's time to do something. And it was so interesting because my friend had come back from this Vipassana meditation retreat. Have you heard of that before?
No.
It's like a 10-day meditation. They call it a retreat. It's not. It's a boot camp.
Let's just be clear about this, okay? You know, like
yes. Just to clarify, okay?
Yeah.
It's like 10 days, 10 hours a day of straight meditation. None of the bells and whistles. There's no music. There's just a guy that explains the technique for like 5 minutes. And then you do that for 10 hours. There's no food after 12. There's no talking, no eye contact, no sensual exploration in self, no exercise. You can't even do yoga. Crazy.
Oh my God.
And she'd come back from the center, and she was a totally different person to whom I had remembered. And she kept saying to me, she was like, Ber, you have to go. And I remember intuitively just being like, yeah, I'm gonna go. Because after that incident, like, we crossed that road and not cared about my life, I was like, yeah, done, I'm going.
Yeah.
And she said, no, you have to go. I really hope she listens to this podcast one day, because she'll be like, I did not sound like that. But she did. She was
She
just
totally
so
did.
bent out. She totally did. it was so obvious to me. I was going.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I'm definitely going. And it was absolutely choiceless at that point. Like, the choices to me were stay and do and continue to do nothing about your life, and this weird feeling that you have inside your soul that is growing, and cease to care about that ever changing.
Yeah.
Or go and do this thing that makes literally no sense.
Yeah.
And so it was no brainer. So I was like, okay, well, I'm definitely not going to stop caring about myself and my life. So let's go. And so I went, stuffed all these chocolate bars in my bag. I smashed them on the way there, knowing I would have no access to chocolate. It was my biggest vice. And yeah, I went to this center, and it was funny. 6 to 8 days in, I never remember the exact day, but oh, am I allowed to swear on this podcast?
You sure are. We always have an E on every podcast. Yeah, I know.
Okay. Disclaimer, I swear.
I hold that in my heart, actually. I know. You can swear all you want, Ber. Own it.
Yes. Freedom of expression.
Yeah. Unleash,
Yeah.
baby.
And so it was the 6th to 8th day, and I was just not spiritual, not what you would call spiritual. I hadn't done any meditation longer than 15 minutes. I thought vegetarians were weird. I thought that people who didn't wear shoes were gross. And I was sitting behind this woman, and she had these hectic dreadlocks and the baggy hippie pants that you get from India. And I remember, because there were 5 minutes at the end of the day when you could speak to the teacher and ask them questions. And she was asking the teacher, like, I was just meditating, and I just started crying, and I felt like I was going to throw up. I don't know what's happening. And I remember sitting behind her thinking, what a fucking hippie. That will never happen to me. Never gonna happen. I was like, I don't know what that is. It's never gonna happen. I remember thinking, wow, my back is getting really strong from sitting for 10 hours a day. If that's all I get out of this retreat, I'll be really happy.
Yeah. I know.
I ended up going back to my room, and my roommate and I had been separated, so I had my own room. And I was sitting there, and I started thinking about her again, and I was like, I wonder if, and I got to I wonder if, and then all my awareness just completely shifted. And I had never experienced anything like this before. I did not know this was possible, but there was these clouds, or dark, like a thunderstorm, but it wasn't scary. It was coming for me from the sides of my vision and from the front and the back, but I couldn't see it. I could only feel that I could see it.
Yeah.
And then it just swallowed. I started laughing before it even arrived, and I started crying before it arrived. It was like, in a mushroom journey, when everything, nothing makes sense, but you can't stop crying, and it's like a waterfall down your face.
Yeah.
It was exactly like that.
Yeah.
And it swallowed me, and I was thrown into my little girl body, into my 8 to 12-year-old self. And I just started re-experiencing all the things that I had experienced in my abuse. But it was beautiful. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And I was laughing so loud. I was surprised they didn't come and arrest me, because I was like, oh my God, I know what was wrong. I can experience it. I know why I'm like this. I know what happened, about how that changed my personality here. And this is why I feel so unsafe with this relationship. And this is why I run away from all my relationships, and da, da, da. And I was making all these hectic connections, and it was so beautiful. And like I said, I'd never experienced this level of awareness. And so after I left, it was the song playing in my head, I'm walking on sunshine.
Yes.
Days after that happened, were just filled with light.
Oh my God, this is amazing. Yeah.
It was so insane, because I left that retreat, and I was driving back to Brisbane, and because the meditation they taught us was how to be with the sensations that are in your body, and actually just feel them. My body was so sensitive to the things that I was downloading and feeling. And I was singing again in the car to Kelly Clarkson, I'll spread my wings and I'll learn how to fly. And I was so happy. And then there was this piercing thing through my heart that felt like a knife. And my whole body just jolted while I was driving.
Interesting.
And I started to speak before I even knew what I was going to say. And it was like no, 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 I can't be with them. I can't be with them. And I was freaking out because I was like, I don't even know what this is about. But
Yeah.
I knew deep in my soul that I had to end it with my fiance at the time.
Yeah.
It was wild.
Yes, I love this. I've had
Absolutely
the same
wild.
experience in a different way where a
Mm,
mentor was in my life back, oh my God, forever ago, like 15 years ago, and said to me,
mm,
like, you have no idea what you want. And for 3 hours, we sat in this little coffee shop and he kept saying to me, what do you want? And the only thing I knew what I didn't want was to be in my relationship. That was the only thing I came out of there knowing. And I walked into our bedroom at 3 o'clock in the morning and was like, I'm done. I can't handle this anymore. And I had no idea why that was showing up. And it's just so interesting. I love that you brought that up. So cool.
the body just knew, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I just trusted,
Mm,
even though I didn't know anything else. I didn't know what I was supposed to do with my life. I didn't know where journey I was supposed to be on. I'm Canadian, right? So I lived in a province where I knew nobody other than his relationships. And all I knew was I had to leave. And it was the start of this whole entire journey for me. And right at the beginning, right? It was literally the pivotal choice that made boom, and all of the other things started to move. And at the time, I had no idea. And I'm just actually right now in real time with you on this podcast, putting the pieces together and went, oh God, it really started then. Like, and it just didn't drop in before. But now, thank you for that.
yeah, it's so often it is, right? Because then we can fully connect to exactly what you said, what we want.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
oh,
So cool.
I resisted it for like 2 years.
Wow, 2 more years still. Wow. So you
Two
got the
more
message,
years.
you're driving in the car
Got
and
the
you didn't
message.
go back and like do anything. 2 years. Did
Well,
you marry
yeah,
him?
no, I didn't. I
Okay.
did. I called my best friend and I said, I have so much time. And she was like, and then she said, no.
That is hilarious.
It was really, I'm glad she did though, because there was so much that I moved through in that 2 years and then
Yeah.
shifted through that. But then, and then the next phase of my journey started, which was
Yeah.
where I found breathwork. But tell me, do you want me to go into that or do you want
Keep
to ask some
going. Yeah.
questions?
Because I'll just interrupt and interject into this because the story is the important part, I think, of this whole mechanism. Because I feel there's a lot of people right now in the collective really
Mm,
questioning who they are, where they're moving through, what's next for them. And this story, this is what I'm channeling and being directed, is tying some pieces together for some people. It's giving them
mm,
almost like a vision as to, oh my God, like I could really surrender into this, or I can really trust this process, or I can really move. So there's something about your story that is that energy. So like, let's just keep moving in this
mm.
direction, and then we'll figure out where we're headed after.
I love that. I love that. That's my entire
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Um,
It's perfect. It totally sets the tone.
mm, mm.
So
So
good.
when after I did leave my partner,
Yeah.
and I went through this whole initiation of having to, I'm gonna just go over that really quickly,
Yeah.
where it was like you said, like I found what I wanted, found my purpose,
Yeah.
and it was very clear. It was
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I've never experienced being like this connected before, and this has literally solved every problem that I thought I had.
Yes. So good. I love it when
So
that
I'm
drops in.
yeah. Oh, so it was easy.
Yeah.
I actually decided to go to America and look at all the major meditation studios there to try and learn the best modality that would be create the most change for the world. And while I was there, I did worked with over 40 teachers and 13 different styles of meditation and breath work. And I ended up at the studio called the Den Meditation. Have you heard of it? It's in the US.
No, for some reason I feel like I know it, but I don't consciously know it. So
Oh, yeah, I'm
yeah,
sure
tell
you
me
would.
about it.
You've probably visited in your astral projections or your
Yeah, like
dreams.
I'm like, have I
But
been to the den? You know, like, and I'm like,
so there's so many like amazing meditation studios in America, and my intention with going there was that I tried to sell meditation to my clients, but they weren't buying it because the the adversity that I moved through in the 10-day retreat
yeah.
was like too advanced, basically. Too
Mm.
advanced was too hard
Yeah.
because I'm like working with beginners, and they're comparing themselves to me and the techniques, and they're like, I don't feel calm. And I'm like, yeah, no, you just have to keep going. But obviously the way I work have always worked in my life is I go all in, and then I just figure it out later. And not everyone's like that. So I thought, I've got to go to America. They've figured it out. And then I'm going to figure out what they've figured out, take it back and teach that. And so I found myself at the den meditation, and there was these breathwork classes, and I'd never heard, again, I love this because I'd never heard anything about breathwork. And but these classes were just filling up and like selling out. And things like crystal meditation and Reiki meditation and Qigong and a bunch of other modalities were not. So I thought, there has to be something to this that I'm not understanding. So I went to this breathwork class. There's a guy in a blazer, bald, glasses, super nasal voice, very, very powerful. I liked him straight away. Ex-football coach, and he's like yelling at us through the breathwork music, like, it's not called breathwork, it's not called lounge work, it's breathwork because it's work. And I remember I was such a jacked up personal development junkie back then that I was like, I kept going and going until I fainted and passed out. And then
I love this.
That was not relaxing at all. I'm like, this sucks. Why does anyone do this? And then luckily I felt the nudge, and I felt the call to go again, because I'm like, there's still all these people going. People are like, yeah, that was incredible, like crying, all this stuff. I'm like, okay, whatever, I'm gonna go again. And so the next time I walked again to this den meditation, I lived about like literally 3 minutes away, and I'm walking there, and all the storms in my head are coming up. Things like the detractors, like, oh, you could just go get some dinner, or like, oh, maybe we should just go to the gym again. I'd already been that day. Oh, like, just turn around, like, just relax. Like, what? Nothing. Why are you going? And I was like, okay, I'm just whatever to all the thoughts in my head. I'm like, you guys chill out. I'm doing it. There's only a minute left of this walk. And I got there. I'm so grateful I did, because 15 minutes into the breathing, a totally different experience.
So
like
same instructor?
Oh, pardon?
Was it the same instructor?
Same instructor.
Wow. Okay, good. Yeah.
And about 15 minutes in, my whole body just started to bend and shake, like an over tight guitar string that was like close to snapping, and I was shaking, and I remember vibrating through my whole body, and I remember just bursting into tears, and then laughing again, just like I had at Vipassana, just laughing.
Yeah, I love it.
And like crying and not being able to breathe because there was so much snot in my nose, and I was like choking on my own snot and laughing at that because it was just so hilarious to me. And I remember feeling, and I think the facilitator came over to me to support me, but I just did not care because I could feel everything. I could feel all the grief of having left my partner, my fiance. We would have been together for 7 years. I'd given my virginity to him. I could feel that grief again, and I was like, oh, finally. I could feel the joy and how much I loved, and how all the forgiveness for self. I could feel bliss. I could feel connection to God, connection to spirituality. Didn't believe in God before then. I could feel like the essence of consciousness and life, and I was so connected. And when I finished that event, it's like, I felt like my friend that had come to tell me, who had done Vipassana, like you have to do it. Like that energy was like alive in me, and I knew this is what I'm bringing back to Australia. This, like 15 minutes, didn't know how it worked, didn't know why it worked, didn't believe it was going to work. I think that thing, 15 minutes, like compared to 8 days, this is the modality. So I went and studied everything I could about it. I went to the breath center, I went to Joshua Tree, I went to India, I came back. I've done another 2 certifications since then in breathwork. And then I launched my own. Well, first I started teaching breathwork, and again, the same explosive experiences with everybody. I actually had some really like intense experiences with people where I was like, oh, I actually don't know what that is. I need to go and learn more. So that's when I went to Joshua Tree, and I was like, I hope I didn't give someone psychosis.
Please Please tell me I didn't, you know?
But it was good. Okay, learned what I need to learn, came back, supported those people.
Oh my gosh.
And then that's when I started my own certification. And my thing was, cool, I know this technique. This is what happened. I started giving and giving and giving, and I was so freaking tired. And I couldn't give fast enough. I couldn't give anymore. And I remember I was working like 16 to 18-hour days to get this whole thing off the ground. And I remember getting sick every month and losing my voice every month because I was working so hard.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, now you are the antithesis of everything that you teach.
Yes,
Like,
right?
now imposter syndrome is setting in quick and fast and hard. And I can't continue with this. And so it was like, well, how do I shift this so that it becomes, I'm living the truth. I'm the embodiment, right? And that's when it was like, cool, you need to do a certification, because then you can equip a bunch of different people who are really powerful with the tools, and then they will go and spread everything instead of feeling like you have to go and do it manually.
Yeah.
And wear yourself into the ground. And so that was just another huge awakening, where it's been so much for the last probably 2 or 3 years about the restoration of self being the most important thing, of my health, of my well-being, of my happiness, of my desire, of my pleasure, all of that being the centerpiece for everything that I do, and having that be the permission piece for everybody else.
So cool. And I really love this because I feel like there's a lot of us on this journey, just like you, that are like, I do Akashic Records work, and I do a lot of work in clearing energies in the Akashic Records. So spells, curses, distortions of energy, like all the big stuff. And over this past year, I've been like, I still will hold the space for my one-to-one clients and use it to serve and do specific ceremonies in the Akashic Records that have channeled through me. But I'm really feeling this call. Like, I don't want to do one-offs. Like, I'm really feeling this driver in me. And I'm like, how can I maneuver? And last year it dropped in, you're supposed to teach this. And not in a way that I was taught, but in a completely different, unique code that's coming through, like working with the keepers of the records and like channeling through them. And like, I keep getting the downloads. So I have a couple clients that literally pushed me. They're like, we're ready to take this course. Like, we're ready to take this certification. It's a 3-level certification. People can come and take level 1, their own records, do their thing. But level 2 and 3 are like the big stuff with working with others. And so I finally said yes, like literally like a month ago, knowing that I have to create manuals, which are not my like thing. But I feel like we're at this pivotal point of like, we have the tool and we know what our mission is with this tool and we know what it looks like. But now our job is to give it to others so that they can spread more light, so we can use this tool in the world to keep amplifying. Right. So you work within the self. My job is to light them up in their mission. And these people coming through the certification are to use it to help clear their clients so they can step in to their lights more. So it's really interesting to see how it all plays out.
I love that you were called as well, and like your clients actually had to push you and be like, dude, we want this, create it.
Yeah, they're like, we're ready to buy it right
surrender.
now. And I was like, okay, fine. Like, and I'm still a bit stressed. I have like 2 weeks to get the manuals done, and I'm like, okay, it'll be okay. Then I work really well under deadlines. So and then for me, it's like not overthinking anything either. And not that I really do anymore, because I live like, I'm like 90% always in spirit. Like, I follow intuition all the time. But I've learned that, and I've learned through the years to do that. But still, like, I feel you. This is amazing. I love this. I love this.
I love it's that piece around, I learned how to do this. Like, it wasn't just a natural thing that happened, and I'm just gifted and talented and I'm the only one like that. It's like, no,
Yeah.
it's like the willingness to fully surrender to that uncomfortable unknown and that chaos. And
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for seeing that. But also too, I've been talking a lot about surrendering. So I'm so happy that you brought that up in this conversation, because I make a choice every day to step in. And just like you had to make that choice where you really evaluated, I could stay here and live in this. And we know that that's actually not really the truth, because you could have stayed there, but then you would have been up against it, up against it, up against it, and having to do way more work, technically holding that energy than you would if you just surrendered and went, right? And something inside of you was saying that, with consciously, we don't know, but you know, from the unconscious intuitive side, it was like, no, you should probably go this route and just listen to us, you know, and move it this way. But it's that choice. And like you've said it numerous times, it's about following the intuitive pulls, but then making the choice. Like you walked to the breathwork facility having all these other choices moving through. Like even now after our call and after we record this, my body's going, we need to go work out. And my mind's like, well, let's go to the bank. Let's go pick up cat food. And I'm like, no, and you're working out. And then maybe we'll, you know, like, and I when you were saying that, I was like, dude, I just had that conversation with myself 10 minutes ago, you know, like, so we know it and it's in our awareness, but we have to choose every day. So I'd love for you to share, like, because it's shown up in the conversation you were having with me already, like that level of choice, like how does this show up in your field, and even with the people you're working with and what you're seeing in the energy moving through in the collective, I call it, like the people that you're serving, like how is this pivotal decision of choice moving through you?
Such a great question. Thank you. Yeah. And so choices are like, they're possibilities that come through our quantum field. And as you know, they're within every atom, there's like a field of possibility. And these choices come for us, and we have the option to meet them and take them, or they'll move to somebody else. And so when it comes to choices, whether it's in the macro or the micro, whether it is in my purpose work, or whether it's even in a conversation with someone and I feel a flicker of something in my body that says, say this.
I totally get this. I'm like, oh shoot, I ruined the silence. You know, like, she was holding the space for everybody. You know,
it's in that moment. If I don't respond to the choice, then it goes to somebody else. And it might come back and revisit me. But for me, there's this action piece around act while the sensation is there.
Love this.
And when it came to every pivotal moment in any part of my journey, it was the same thing. It was like, quit your job. I was a primary school teacher and I like loved it. I was at a perfect school. These kids would walk around at lunchtimes reading like chapter books in grade 3. It was a perfect school. And when the awareness dropped in of leave your job and go to America and go and study at all these meditation studios, this voice in my head was like, why would I do that? Like, I just finally got this dream job at this school. But it was a felt sensation of do this now. And so I did. And same sort of thing with even when I was watching this really random video by Warren Buffett. And he'd random.
Yeah, I know.
And he'd talked about traits and people that you admire, and he'd said, what habits do you have to change in order to become the person that you desire? And this voice out of the ether, out of the darkness, just came and said, you have to give up sugar. And I hadn't done no research on sugar. I didn't know it was bad for you. Back then I used to eat just like chocolate bars, cakes and lollies every single day. And I still do eat cake every day, to be fair. But the quantities are vastly different, right? But as soon as I got that whisper, I said, the fuck? And then I said, I'm not doing that. And then I said, oh, fine. And then I gave it all up for a year, just had 0 sugar. And that's when my purpose to go to all the different studios, to learn all the modalities, that's when it dropped in. What I've learned is that choices are like these beautiful, I feel like they're their own entity. They're their own dreams, people's dreams. They're dreams that come to each and every one of us, and they come from the collective, and they go and float into your awareness, and they say, hey, do you want to do this now? And we can either say yes, or we can let them go, and they'll go to somebody else. But they're always changing, and there's all these different choices that come through us moment to moment. And if we can jump on them in the moment, then that choice will unfold because we're surrendering completely to it, and the entire reality that it is exposing to us Whereas if we try and respond to that choice later, it doesn't apply to the context of the moment that you're in. And so sometimes there's so much more resistance to work through to catch up to the moment that you were in when that choice came to you, first of all. So I think this answers your question. It's about when that feeling comes through my whole body to choose, I act straight away. I do not wait for my brain to kill it. I just take the action, even and maybe especially if it makes no logical sense.
Yes, you definitely answered my question. A, because I always believe whatever answer comes out of you is exactly the right answer. But B, also, like, that was so powerful. I loved. Are you an artist, by the way? Like, do you paint or like do you?
Ah,
Yeah.
I used to love painting, but I'm also a dancer, and um and I would say that, yeah, I've always loved to write and sing as well. So yes, I am an
I
artist.
just see it when you move your arms, and like I was like, oh man, that's the perfect reel right there. Like that's the clip I want to grab, because you created this beautiful energy with your arms while you were talking about choice, and you probably don't even realize that you actually did that. But it was like I was watching like a masterpiece unfold, and I just kept seeing this brush stroke moving through you as you drew up this beautiful piece of art. And it was like, I bet you if you were to drop in right after this call, if you desired, and grabbed like a blank canvas and just put some paint down and you leaned into choice, this beautiful like masterpiece like image would drop into you. Like it just would be so cool, just the way that that visually came to me while you were drawing this out in words. It was so, like, that's, yeah, so cool, so cool.
Thank you.
You're
Yum.
welcome. Yeah, I
Mm.
see it. Like I was like, oh my God, I see it. And your words were so powerful. For those that heard that, like I hope you heard that. You know, I live and breathe that in my life, but I've learned to live and breathe that in my life. Just like I'm sure you had to hone in on that skill set, quote unquote, as you move through life. And just when it drops in, we surrender. Like I call it aligned action, right? So I desire something in my life, and I've been asking the universal alignment for this desire. I see it, I feel it, it's in the ethers. My job now is to take action when it drops in, like make that call, send that email, jump in and send Ber the link so she can book in for a podcast. Yeah. Like, go for it, Ber. What do you want to do to that? I know.
Yes. Click yes when the Zoom invitation arrives in your inbox. Yes.
I'm in, you know, and like that's what it, I really feel like as humans we distort it, you know, and we almost think it's got to be harder for us, or we think it's got to be more complicated, or could it really be that easy? Yeah, it can.
Yeah,
Right?
100%. When we
Mhm.
say yes and then we continue to say yes, regardless of what shows up,
Yeah.
that's the piece. People think that when things show up, they like, oh, imposter syndrome, or who am I to do this, or negative feedback from their peers or their community reacts and tells them that they should be small again. They think that that means that they're on the right path. But I'm like, no, that is the universe giving you all the challenges you need to stretch your energetic capacity so you can be a match for everything that you say you desire.
So potent.
Yeah, it's like those are flags in the ground that are actually saying you're on the right path. Like
So
all of this is being purged from your system so that you can have everything that you keep saying you want, but you've got to keep saying that that's what you want and you have to believe it.
and like there's, it's so rooted in that belief too. Like I think that a lot of us have been conditioned that you'll never get everything you want. You just got to stay 9 to 5 working your fucking ass off, and going into the system and following the rules and being a good little student, or whatever the hell it is that people are being told these days. Where like I have a rebel energy, which I'm sure you can feel that about me, and you can feel it, like even though I'm like I've got like this like if you're telling me I need to do this and this doesn't feel right, fuck you, I'm not doing it, you know, like, and I had that, my poor mother, right? My poor mother. But you know, like when I was growing up, she's like, I hope you have 2 girls just like you. And at the time I like fought her on that and went, I'll know how to raise them, da 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 da. And now I realize she was like cursing me, you know, like, in the space of, oh, she was trying to get you to understand how crazy of a kid you are and how hard it is to manage you. And I was like, maybe she just shouldn't have managed me and just allowed me to go flow into whatever chaos I was creating. Well, that's a whole other vibrational alignment, inside of that space, because most of us are playing in a field like, we need to do this to be a good parent, you need this, or to be a good citizen, you need to do this. And some of these mechanisms are being busted open right now in our field. And it's the truth of us that's shining bright. The truth that you can go to America and go float around America to all these meditation places to try and find the thing that you're desiring. I love this. It's like eat, pray, love in my mind. I'm like, oh my God, she like eat, prayed, loved America,
And while we're here, may I speak into what's possible? Because I feel like I've spoken into a lot about the past, but I'd love to speak into like what is alive in the present and what's alive in the future.
Please.
So that people can see.
Yeah.
When you really trust, like, it's like a lot of people think that when you trust, you're just gonna have to let go and nothing's gonna happen. I'm like, no, like what has happened in my life? We've built 2 6-figure businesses. The first one we did 6 figures in 12 months. When I say we, you know who I'm talking about? Me, my mind, and my heart, and my body, and my soul.
I love it. And someone said to me, what do you mean we? And I was like, oh, like my collective of energies around me, like,
yeah,
like we
exactly. Every energy that's in my field, duh. And,
we're like soul sisters, girl. I love this.
I know. I can feel it straight away.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so grateful. I'm so excited I got to meet her.
That's the thing, right? Like everyone in my community, in my tribe right now, just meeting you, like it's just so natural. It's like we've had, like, you would never have guessed it, that we've just met literally today.
Yeah. Like right here, I was like, how do I say your name? How do I pronounce this? Like that's what happens.
Yeah.
So
and
fun.
The sisters that I've created in my life right now, like the ease in those relationships, the relationship that I have with my beautiful men now is so potent, powerful. Never felt so safe in my nervous system. I've got way more money in my bank account than I've ever had in my entire life. What else is like amazing? My health is probably the best it's ever been. My body is the fittest. I've never looked this good. Like,
you
this
own it,
stuff
girl.
Works. Thank you. This stuff actually works.
It's so fun. Yeah. And I'd love to even to speak to, like, because of the assurity you have right now in the present time, the work you've done on yourself, you stepped in, you believed, you just kept taking action, you following the cues, making the choices, all the dynamic that's led you to here. We know that the possibilities moving forward are a new imprint as you continue to maneuver. So like, where's the focus now for you? And like, what does this feel like and look like as you're owning the juiciness,
Thank you, Colleen. I'm so excited you asked me this question. I just love I love where I've arrived. For me now, it's actually about leaning into my feminine leadership. For the early part of my journey, which I feel is how I burned out so quickly when I was doing those 16 to 18-hour days with 1 day off a month, was because I was fully listening to the masculine. And for those people who are listening who don't really understand, I know you do, there's masculine and feminine energies within each of us. Masculine and feminine does not necessarily apply to gender. It's just how is it expressed through your human body. And I was very, very expressed in my masculine, which meant that, like the masculine loves to conquer, to force, to push, that's what I did with my business. And oh my God, I was just so miserable and so tired and so sick. And there was a period where I really had to heal that part of my nervous system that was acting from a masculine core, when the reality was I was feminine. I have a feminine core. And where I'm at now has been so potent, because I went through this journey of making the masculine energy in me wrong, and then healing the feminine energy in me. And now I've come into this really activated, integrated place. And a lot of women think that a lot of masculine women think if I go feminine, I'm just going to float around all day and feel all my feelings and lie around crying and do nothing with my life. And I'm like, no, that's not the real feminine at all. You know this, hey?
Yeah, I totally know this.
The feminine is like anchored in her feeling, so honest about what she feels in her body, that there is no other truth that she can follow and move forward and use as momentum, but to listen to the voices in her heart and then take action from that place. again and again and again. And that's where I've landed. Like there's this fire in my belly. And what does she want to do? It's like the masculine in me, because I've done a lot of business containers. The masculine in me is like, oh, well, you should be doing this. You should create this funnel. You should go and take everything online, because then that way, yeah, it all this friggin'
We're like
should.
soul sisters. I totally get this. Like this whole everything you
So
said in some way,
boring.
shape, or form has landed in my field somewhat.
Oh,
Yeah. Like we're
God.
like completely aligned. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah, yeah. And then yeah, and I get it. I'm like, yeah, I probably would make more money if I did it that way. And I'd probably, yeah, put in less energy and effort if it was all online. But my heart and my soul and the feminine in me is like, I don't give a fuck about any of that. I just want to be in front of people. I just want to be with other humans. I want to be sharing the truth as it is, not the polished, perfected image that's required to create this brand. I'm like, I don't give a fuck about that anymore. I'm sorry. I'm not
I don't
sorry.
either. No, thank you. Someone the other day says to me, "What do you mean you don't have a website?" I don't have a website. Like, I don't want a website. I don't need a website. If you need a website for me to be edified in your world, to step onto your platform to share, we are not the right people together. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, we are not aligned. It's
Yeah.
like, you're not wrong, I'm not wrong, we're both
No.
right, but there's a
Yeah.
value misalignment here. So
Yeah.
go and find your people. And that's exactly what I've been moving through with the feminine. She's just fully on fire and leading. And so I've created all these in-person events in Australia. Again, like I kind of closed all that down while I was building the business, and I've opened it all up again. I just took my facilitator training and I made it in person. I randomly spoke to everyone that was already in it, and I said, hey guys, how do you feel about doing this in person? And they were like, yeah. And I'm like, cool. And then I had another container that I collapsed again, and I was like, hey guys, this is what I said. I was like, this container feels like a wet sack of potatoes that has fallen over and is growing mold on it, and the spores are being released into the air, and we're all breathing them.
I have a program next week that I'm shifting to. I'm like, I'm not supposed to teach this right now. So like what I'm going to do, and some people bought into like programs for the year. So I'm just going to give them one-to-one calls that are worth more than what they pay a month. And I'm like, just take that instead. And most of you guys need this right now. So like, let's just move that. And I'm going to just completely abolish the program.
I was like, do you want to do a retreat? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, yay. And it's
exactly right.
And that's the feminine, right? The
Yeah.
feminine-led business. Like when you're like, oh, I just want to do one-on-one calls, because it feels like an exhale.
Yes.
It just feels easy. It feels like effort. And that's the feminine. And I was saying to this to one of my clients, I'm like the masculine is so powerful, and I love it. And I love him in me. But he operates from a place of force. And throughout history, we as women have needed to step outside it because we're not as physically strong as them. So what did we do? We created other systems where we had power, but they were like guerrilla systems. They were like ones that the men couldn't see and they couldn't understand. And they'll never understand because we did them invisibly. Yeah. And now we have this invisible power in our bodies and in our awareness that men cannot logically understand in their paradigm of the world, unless they have a very feminine core, right? Yeah. And so especially in business, it is like a masculine dominated world. And so we get to notice where they're telling us that things can only be done one way, and it's going to be hard, and you have to do it like this. And if you feel something that doesn't feel good, you just go harder. We get to be so aware of how that is a paradigm that we never thrived in.
Yes, so true.
Right? Yeah. We invisibly created power in different ways for the last millennia, because there was no way to gain power the way they said to. Yeah. And that's why men also unconsciously have this fear of the feminine, because she operates in pure chaos and she's invisible. Yeah. And she's like so much more powerful than they in that sense around power and force. And they need it because they will die without it, and their lineage will die without it. And so it's understanding the power of being a woman in business right now. Like it is incredible. So I don't know where I'm going with this, but I feel like I'm just speaking into those women who are listening and thinking, oh, like, I don't know if I can do this. It's like, yes, you 100% definitely can. If you feel any kind of thread that your work is supposed to be shared on a wider scale, like right now is the time to step into it. The choice is there. Take it. It's like, it is so needed and so required.
It's so timely too. Like a lot that's been dropping into my field is the twin flame energy, and not just in the
Mm,
collective of a union between two people, it's the union within ourselves. So really meeting that bridge in our own twin flame energy as a soul within us, in that beautiful mirroring of both the masculine and feminine energy inside of us. So what is the
mm,
masculine showing us and what is the feminine showing us, and how do we bring in the both of them? Because we obviously know we still need the grit of the masculine to move stuff forward, but we're not led and only leading in that energy. We're pulling from the root of the potency within us. And it's so, I could go anywhere with this, because I'm like, I kept seeing Mary Magdalene and like Yeshua, and how she like literally was like this to him, behind him, to help him be able to
mm,
step in. Like she was the one that activated his Kundalini energy, which most people don't even know. Like it was like, so the feminine has always been this pulse point behind this mechanism. Even in the warrior world or the gladiator world, the woman was behind, breathing into the men to be able to give, like, baby, you can go do this. And obviously they had other words in another language probably, but like it's like that infrastructure. But now we've got to
mm,
pull it within ourselves to bring it up and
mm.
pull that root. And even the men, like I have a male client I literally was on a call with right before this, that dropped in right at the end of the call, like, you need to embody this feminine piece in who you are too, because it's the key here for
Mm.
your service in the masculine world. And it's happening everywhere. So I'm not surprised, Ber, that you brought this up, because it's like, it's a potency in the collective. And I'm so happy that you almost challenge the women to step in and own this, because we desire this push. Like it's being called to us, because there's a lot of women floating around right now that are like pretending, quote unquote, to be lost. And why I say pretending is because they're not. But they're like, they got this, they're like choosing the chaos and like the lack of clarity in this thing, instead of just going boom and then just trusting. But all the infrastructures and all the things we've already talked about and all the stuff that's dropping into your awareness now to share is what we're living under, instead of actually aligning in the truth of us and using that to pull from. So yeah.
100%. Oh, thank you. Yes. And I
Yes.
loved how you spoke into the masculine as well, because I feel like that this is so important to the masculine too. And on the same level, in that the embodiment of the deeper masculine for them,
Yeah.
right? It's like
Yeah.
that's a superpower that we as the feminine can never completely consciously understand, because that is their power. So how can they drop into that and use that to move forward, and at the same time listen to the feminine as well, and utilize the heart and speak and move from that place. But it's like, what side of the pendulum are you on, and where do you get to pendulate back so that you can utilize both and transcend duality and actually access the quantum field, so you're able to take quantum leaps and move exponentially rather than incrementally through this world. Where are we going with this?
So, well, I wanted to just make one comment. You said it about your partner, and you said about how safe you feel in this relationship and how your nervous system can like breathe in
Mm,
that relationship. And that is what an amplified
mm,
masculine, who also understands the feminine energy within him, holds. Right, they hold
mm,
it, and it's in that intuitiveness inside themselves and their understanding and knowing. And we need them to hold the space for us, because we're in this position of blooming and coming, and yeah, we're independent women, sure, we can do life on our own, and we've proven that out in six-figure businesses and the way we show up in the and all that. But we desire this union in our life, and we desire to have these men hold that space for us so we can fully be. Yeah. So cool.
I'm so happy you spoke into that. It's so true. He is so masculine.
Yeah, right?
And because of that masculinity, I can dissolve completely, just melt into my little girl, melt into my chaos in his presence.
Yeah.
I'm like, my voice becomes like this, because it just feels so safe to be with him. It's like so fun. And it's so important for us to fully like let go and know that we can be held and not make that wrong. I think, like you said, as powerful independent women, it's like, oh no, I've got to avoid codependency. like, I can do everything myself. I'm the strong one. And it's all true. And it's an end. And it feels amazing to be treated like a princess. So just let them. Makes them feel good too.
They desire that, and that's who they are. Why are you diminishing that from them? Like, when we block receiving in any way, we're telling the universe we're not open to receive. So if you're having challenges in money, I guarantee you're blocking receiving somewhere else in your life. I guarantee that's a thing. Like, I just, like, the give and take energy is the flow. Like, it is. It's like we give and we receive at the same time. Like, it's both that play out in the world. So it's the same thing with this duality too, right? All of it, the duality, polarity of the earth, everything. This is so cool.
100%.
Yeah. So cool. It's going to be fun to feel into what I'm going to call this episode, because we've been all over the map here today. It may just maybe be called all over the map, but listen, I don't know.
And we actually haven't, I just realized we actually haven't even spoken into what breathwork is. And
and it's been an hour we've been talking. Isn't that crazy? Like, it literally has been like an hour. Okay, well, I definitely want you to speak to that. And I want you to lean into the space of like, where can people find you? What are you up to? If they're inclined, because your energy is this like pure, like, I love this energy that you're moving in the world. This, like there's such an assurity to you, but there's also like this beautiful, like I said, like that paintbrush, this beautiful flow. So there's going to be people that are like, who is this Ber and how do I like connect with her? But like, let's go to breath work first, and then you can tell us all the juicy avenues.
Perfect. So may I get some clarity as well with your community? Do you find they're quite new to the work, or they've been in it for a while?
All over the place. So like, I don't tend to work with, let's say, newbies in the spiritual world and realm, because I'm going to own this. I don't really have the patience to go all the way to the beginning. So I like, and that's the truth. Like, I'm an activator, literally. Like, I'm going to activate wherever you are. Yeah. Wherever you are, I'm going to go boom. And then we're going to amplify and you're going to go out. And some people come into my world there where they don't really have too much of a base, but the energy we're working within is exactly what is needed at this moment of time. So
Perfect.
It depends. So go wherever you feel called. That's what I'll say.
Perfect. Yeah. So I'll start with the absolute basics then, and then I'll just kind of go from there.
Yeah.
So what breathwork actually is consciously controlling the breath to create an altered state of consciousness. And so what we get to understand is that the breath is this link between the conscious and unconscious mind, because it's one of the few processes that we're actually unconsciously experiencing that is both conscious and unconscious. So you can take control of it and change the way that you breathe, but if you don't think about it at all, it continues to run itself anyway, right? And so that's the first point of access. And there's 4 levels of breath work that I go through in my training. The first is functional and foundational breathing, which is designed to optimize circulation, oxygen delivery in your body. The second is state changing, which is altering your state so that you can go from relaxed to energized, or from anxious to relaxed. The next one is the soul-side breathwork method, which is the journeys that we go through, which allow us to access the quantum field. And the final state, the 4th state, is the most integrated, which is combining all 3 so that you can access the quantum results of things like spontaneous healings, gift activations, astral travel, and a bunch of other stuff. But the key piece, the key piece here is people think that breathwork is just pranayama, which is like a yogic breathing technique, or they think it's just holotropic, or they think it's just Wim Hof. Breathwork at its core and most basic level is creating an altered state of consciousness through controlling the breath. And the one that is really popular right now, and the one that we really work with the most, is the popularized methods of Wim Hof, holotropic, rebirthing, transcendental, shamanic breathwork, right?
Yep.
And I'm going to explain a little bit more about this for the super noobs. Basically, what we're doing scientifically, this is how I explain it in the masculine.
Yeah.
We are over-oxygenating our bodies so that our brains become deprived of oxygen, because the body perceives that to be too much. So we breathe a lot faster and a lot deeper than we normally would, which means that our body can't actually release oxygen efficiently in our bodies anymore.
Yeah.
And because the way our brains have evolved, because they've come from like that reptilian state of just hunger, thirst, sexual drive, and then the next layer, the mammalian brain, which is that part of us that has emotional experiences, which is why elephants can mourn their dead and dogs will be happy or sad depending on whether you're there, right? And then the third layer that evolved was the neocortex, or the part of our brain that thinks and plans and evaluates and makes decisions and thinks about all the different things that you haven't done and you could do if you could just get out of your way. That part is the most sensitive to chemical change. And so when you shift the distribution of oxygen and CO2 in your body, that part goes, deactivates, and then you're able to go into your limbic system and your emotional centers and feel what you're actually feeling, not what you think you're feeling. And then beyond that, you can access that reptilian brain, which is like the house of your ancestry, right? Like you think about the need to eat and the need to sleep and the need to have sex. What is that? That's literally evolution at play. So millions of years of evolution that you're accessing, of unconscious intelligence that has been coded into your genetics and coded into your brain and wired in so deeply that you think it's just natural, when actually it's a conditioned way of being, which has come about through the birth and death of all your ancestors over time. And so we get to access those regions of the brain through breathwork. And that is where the magic happens. This is like the altered state that we create. And in that, for the people that are just starting, it's really important to know that whatever happens in your breathwork experience is exactly what you need at this moment. And it is taking you exactly where you are meant to go. And if you're just starting, the simplest thing that you can do to get yourself back into your body is to take a breath in through the nose. And then when you exhale out through the nose, to double that exhalation. And what this is going to do is take you into your parasympathetic nervous system, into your rest and digest, into your relaxation, and take you out of that tunnel vision and into lateral focus, into a place where you can actually see what's really happening, because you're in a state of rest instead of looking for danger in places that you can fix. And so that is a super basic breath work technique that I can give your people. And I've also linked you, Colleen, with like my Spotify playlist, which has a bunch of different techniques. So the state changes, the soul side breathwork method, the quantum access breathwork is in there as well. And then there's also a bunch of, like, if people just message me on Facebook or on Instagram and just say, hey, like, this is my intention for the year, here's 3 words, I will send them a free gift of a breathwork journey so they can experience that deeper embodiment of the breath. And the reason we do it that way is because there are like safety instructions to go through, as you would know.
Yeah. I have a
And
breathwork
also,
app that says every time before, when I click on the app, it goes, make sure that you are not blah, 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 you know, before you even go into the breathwork session. So like, I totally feel that disclaimer.
Perfect. 100%. Yeah.
You know, what's so funny, Ber, is that like, I love all this, by the way. And I always say to people, like, I talk about grounding a lot because most people are flighty and they're everywhere, right? And I say to them, the breath is this beautiful gift that we don't even realize we have. And it's like, we don't have to pay for it. It was always given to us. It was like God was like, or whomever you believe was like, here, they're going to need this. Let's give them this tool, like called the breath, because some of them, especially when they hit their shit shows, are going to need to learn how to recalibrate the body, right? And it's so cool to see how this plays out. I literally yesterday was leading a circle. Once a month I do a circle. I channel a specific deity. I walk them through an experience, whatever's channeling into me, and move them through something. And yesterday I was told they need to start off by doing this breath work for like the full song, whatever. It was like a very Hindu lineage I was channeling. Sarada Devi and Kali who was coming in. Like it was really kind of in the Indian, and obviously you've been to India, in that mechanism. And the breath that came through at the beginning to ground them in was an inhale through the nose and then 2 exhales out and then inhale through the nose. And now you just described it and I went, oh, that's why that dropped in. Like I have no reference point as to why, but all the pieces always come together. And I just go, like, it makes so much sense, you know, like, and I'm just like, yeah, just so grateful. So
Oh, I love that. Yes. It's like unconsciously you already know.
yeah.
And I love that you've spoken into, the 2 exhales, because it's called the golden rule. Like in yogic theory, the golden ratio is doubling the exhalation. And so I love that. Let's just like hone that in for everyone. If you just take one thing away from this, take away the golden ratio, and that's going to completely transform your life.
It's so cool. And I love this. And obviously we're going to link up all the links you sent me. So they'll be in the show notes. So you're feeling this, you want some, you know, you want actually this from Ber, like just message her. She's going to be all over this and in that space of time. But I want to hold space for what we've committed to and the podcast length as well. But I want to pass you the baton to kind of close off to say, like, what do you want to say to people? Like, what's on your heart today to speak into the universe, wherever you want to lead us today? And I want to close off on that, I feel.
I've got it. Okay. So when we're in the work, sometimes we start thinking that we have this obligation, or this, like, we're duty bound to have to keep doing the work. And I think that's really beautiful. I love that the people that I'm surrounded by are so committed. They're always looking for how I can be better and how I can grow faster and how I can do more and how I can serve more. And where is the other problem in me that I can fix? And I'd love to speak into that last piece of where is the problem in me that I can fix? Because at some point in your journey, it's no longer about fixing. It's only about enhancing and amplifying. And so for those of you that are just starting and just getting on this journey, like, it can be really powerful to look for things and problems in your life to solve. And for those of you that are further along, I would invite you to look now for where life is easy and for where you're making this way harder than it has to be. And for where, instead of looking for how you are, all this work that you've done has been incredibly empowering and is exactly what you set out to do. Instead of looking for where you can gaslight yourself further, to instead start looking for your deepest desires and pleasures and allowing them to unfold. I think that it's really easy to make the work hard and heavy. And the work can be hard and heavy sometimes. And so sometimes the edge for us is to look for where it is super light, super easy, funny, even. And then to keep moving towards how we are an inspiration for others, and letting everything that is not that, not get rid of it, but instead just let it fall away, because it will. If you keep moving towards the light, everything that isn't you will fall away, and it doesn't have to be hard.
Yeah, I literally had this easy conversation like an hour before we jumped on here. Like, it's just amazing to see like how the messages are moving through us. Like, you're in Australia, I live in Costa Rica, and even from across the globe, we're still feeling the same beat in our heart to serve humanity in that. And I really want people to feel that energy and know and understand that it's not just Colleen out there preaching it, and it's not just Ber out there preaching it, that this is actually a universal truth moving through us. And that if we actually surrender to it and fully lead in it and step into this, that the possibilities of living these beautiful lives are ours. And if it's in you, it's for you. I say this all the time: if it's in you, it's for you. So allow yourself to drop into that. And just like you said, like it really is easy for us to make it hard. So how about we make it easy on ourselves to make it easy? Right? We can flip that switch, I think, you know?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Ber, this has been amazing. And I feel like you're going to be back on here someday in the future because you and I could riff about anything. And like as you could see, like we didn't even hit like the main thing about what Ber does in the world until like the last 10 minutes in. So like we could just go about philosophy and about calibration and all that stuff. So if you're down, I'm sure we will book another time to get together because I just love to spread your spirit more into the world. All the contact details will be in the show notes and making sure people can get a hold of you, lean into you. If you're in Australia and you desire to become a breathwork facilitator or to learn from this beautiful being, please reach out to her too, because I'm sure she is accepting all people in her world to, well, at least in qualified energy, to step into the space with her.
I love
You won't
you.
make it through the gate if
You
you
are the
aren't
best.
vibrating in her field, anyways, I'm sure. But like just to help serve humanity that way, right? And to step into the light.
100%, yes. And even if they're not in Australia, I do have online courses available and also loads of online stuff that I can send them for free. Yeah, that people are listening to all over the world. So even if you're not in Australia, get in touch with me and we would just love, love, love to connect. I really like have enjoyed this so much and I agree. I feel like we can definitely come back and do more and
So
just go
fun.
down rabbit holes. I'm like, we're like the female Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson right now.
So good. I'm like, and I love this. And I'm like, people are like, do you have any questions prepared for me? Fuck no. Okay. Like, we're just going to go on and riff where it takes us. And we're just going to hold the light and keep shining brightly in the world. That's what we're going to do. And we'll see where it takes us.
Mm,
So this has
yeah.
been amazing, Ber. I so appreciate your energy and all of the juiciness that you bring to life within me and the collective. And yeah, we'll see you guys all again soon.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Love you, everybody.